Blood trickled down Sarah Chen's temple as she crawled through the maintenance tunnel beneath Atlanta's Surrender Plaza. The Kreth guards had been thorough in their search protocols, except for their blind spot regarding human infrastructure. Their scans couldn't penetrate the century-old lead pipes that now served as her escape route. Her husband's final words echoed in her mind. "Remember, Prometheus." To the Kreth, it had sounded like desperate human mythology. Only Sarah knew it was a coded reference to the subterranean facility where Earth's most brilliant minds had been working on experimental weapons technology before the invasion. The tunnel opened into a drainage canal. Rain pelted her face as she emerged into the gray twilight, distant explosions illuminating the clouds as the Kreth methodically destroyed military installations they deemed threatening. The irony wasn't lost on her. They were obliterating obsolete missile silos, while the real danger lay elsewhere. Sarah activated the subdermal communicator implanted in her molar. "Nightingale to nest. Extraction required." Static answered her, but she detected 3 clicks buried in the white noise. Confirmation received. 2 hours later, a civilian truck with radiation warning symbols pulled alongside the abandoned gas station where she waited. The driver, an older woman with steel gray hair, nodded once. "Commander." "Not anymore," Sarah replied, climbing in. "There's no military left to command. There's always someone willing to fight," the woman said, introducing herself as Dr. Eleanor Reeves, former director of DARPA's Quantum Computing Division. "And we've been expecting you." They drove west, avoiding major highways where Kreth patrol ships hovered. Eleanor explained that a network had formed in the chaotic days after first contact. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel who foresaw the possibility of defeat and planned accordingly. "James gave his life to give you time to escape," Eleanor said, her voice gentle but firm. "He knew what was at stake." Sarah clutched the data crystal she'd stolen, microscopic in size, hidden beneath her thumbnail. "The Kreth aren't just here to conquer," she said. "They're methodical. This is a harvesting operation." "We know," Eleanor replied. "Their ship configurations suggest resource extraction is their primary objective. The question is, what resources?" Dawn broke as they reached the Appalachian foothills. Eleanor turned onto an unmarked forest road that seemed to disappear into the mountainside. A holographic projection, Sarah realized, primitive by Kreth standards, but effective against their automated scans. The mountain itself opened, revealing a massive steel door designed to withstand nuclear impact. As they drove inside, Sarah saw the impossible. A fully operational research facility sprawling deep into the mountain's core, bustling with hundreds of personnel. "Welcome to Project Prometheus," Eleanor said. Officially, it never existed. The blackest of black projects, a collaborative effort between 37 nations, begun when our deep space telescopes first detected anomalies 5 years ago. Sarah stepped from the vehicle, legs trembling from exhaustion and shock. So some people knew the Kreth were coming. Not specifically the Kreth, but we knew something was approaching, deliberate signal patterns that couldn't be natural. Eleanor led her toward a central command area. "What we've assembled here is humanity's insurance policy. The best minds, the most advanced technology we could develop, and..." She paused at a reinforced door requiring retinal scans from both women. "Or greatest discovery." The door slid open, revealing a laboratory where scientists worked around a containment chamber. Inside floated what appeared to be shards of metallic crystal suspended in electromagnetic fields. 3 years ago, a meteor crashed in Siberia, Eleanor explained. "Inside, we found these fragments. They're not from our solar system, or even this arm of the galaxy, based on their composition." Sarah approached the chamber, mesmerized by the shifting colors within the crystal. "What is it?" "We don't know exactly, but when exposed to certain frequencies, it generates energy patterns that interfere with Kreth technology. We've only begun to understand its potential." Eleanor's eyes hardened. "What we do know is this. The Kreth are terrified of it. Your husband died to ensure you'd bring us this. She pointed to Sarah's hidden data crystal. Confirmation of what we suspected. Sarah placed her hand against the chamber glass. For the first time since watching James die, she felt something other than despair. It wasn't hope. Not yet. But its precursor. Purpose. How soon can we weaponize it? She asked. Maya pressed herself against the crumbling concrete wall, holding her breath as the Kreth patrol hovered past. Their biomechanical drones, half machine, half living tissue, swept the ruins with sensory appendages that could detect a human heartbeat through 3 feet of solid steel. She clutched the medpack to her chest, its precious contents worth more than her life to the 53 survivors hiding in the old subway tunnels beneath Hollywood. Movement detected. Investigating. The drone's translator module made its chittering sound like flat, emotionless English. Maya closed her eyes. Her sister would die without the stolen medicine. The settlement would likely follow. The radiation sickness from the rare earth extraction was killing them slowly, making them worthless to the Kreth labor quotas. A high-pitched whine cut through the air, followed by the unmistakable sound of Kreth technology short-circuiting. Maya opened her eyes to see the drone convulsing midair, its appendages twitching before it crashed to the ground. Run. Now. The voice came from above her. A figure in patchwork armor stood on the collapsed freeway overpass, holding what looked like a modified Kreth sonic disruptor. Maya sprinted across the exposed street toward the drainage tunnel that would lead her home. Behind her, she heard the distinctive sound of Kreth enforcers, their 6-legged exoskeletons clicking against asphalt. Then came more electronic whines, followed by alien screams. She didn't look back until she reached the tunnel entrance. What she saw made her freeze in disbelief. The armored figure moved with impossible grace, anticipating the Kreth attack patterns, using their own technology against them. When the last enforcer fell, the figure removed her helmet. "You're her," Maya whispered. "The Ghost Commander." Sarah Chen's face was leaner than in the propaganda images the Kreth had broadcast during the surrender ceremonies. Her once-regulation haircut now a silver-streaked mohawk. A jagged scar ran from her left temple to her jaw. "That's not my name," she said, approaching. "Everyone calls you that. They say you died and came back to haunt the Kreth." Sarah examined the medpack Maya carried. Tellurium-based antibiotics. "Your people have radiation poisoning." Maya nodded. "My sister, she's only 11. Sarah's expression softened momentarily. "Come with me. We have better treatments at our base. Bring your people." "Why would you help us? We're nobody." "Because nobody is exactly who's going to save this planet." Sarah tapped her wrist communicator. "Package secured. Plus 53 to extract." 3 hours later, Maya stood in amazement inside what had once been Griffith Observatory, now disguised as a radiation-blasted ruin, but functioning as the Eastern Coalition's Western outpost. Medical teams treated her settlement survivors, while Sarah led her to the central operations room. 3 years, Maya said, looking at the holographic map showing Kreth installations worldwide. "How have you managed to build all this?" "One day at a time. One recruit at a time." Sarah pointed to blinking red dots across North America. "These are staging areas for their Phase 2 operations. We've intercepted enough data to know their pattern. Exploit, extract, exterminate." A scientist approached, his lab coat incongruous among the tactical gear worn by most personnel. "Commander, Project Harmony is ready for field testing." Sarah nodded. "Dr. Kaczynski specializes in acoustical physics," she explained to Maya. "The Kreth nervous system is sensitive to specific sound frequencies that don't affect humans." Kaczynski held up what looked like a modified speaker. "We started with captured Kreth sound weapons and reversed their operating principles. This prototype can temporarily paralyze a Kreth enforcer at 20 meters. "It's not enough," said a new voice. A teenage boy no older than 16 sat cross-legged on a console, his fingers dancing across 3 holographic interfaces simultaneously. I've broken into their command transmission again. They're moving up the timetable. Sarah froze. Show me, Eli. The boy projected a schematic onto the main screen, a global map with steadily advancing percentage markers for each continent. Resource extraction is at 64% globally, Eli said. Their cleansing protocol initiates at 85%. Based on acceleration of mining operations, we have approximately 7 months before they begin systematic extermination. Maya felt her blood run cold. Extermination. Sarah's eyes hardened. Now you understand why we fight the way we do. We're not just resisting occupation. She pointed to the advancing percentages. We're fighting extinction. Dr. Kaczynski cleared his throat. Commander, there's something else you should see. The latest test results from Project Prometheus. Overseer Nick Stahl moved through the Detroit labor camp with practiced efficiency, her slender blue form a stark contrast to the bulky Kreth enforcers who flanked her. The humans didn't meet her eyes, a behavior she had observed across 17 previously conquered species. Survival meant invisibility. Until today. Contraband detected, chirped her scanner, highlighting a human female hunched over an assembly line. Nick Stahl approached, expecting to find hoarded food or perhaps primitive weapons, the usual acts of feudal defiance. Instead, she found a book. Hand-bound, its cover fashioned from scavenged materials, pages filled with what appeared to be human script. This violates Code 37B, Nick Stahl announced, her translator converting her melodic language to harsh English. All non-essential communication materials are forbidden. The human didn't protest as Nick Stahl confiscated the item. The standard procedure was immediate disposal, but something, curiosity perhaps, or the wariness of 3 decades enforcing Kreth regulations, made her slip the book into her personal pouch instead. Later, alone in her quarters, Nick Stahl examined her discovery. Poetry, she realized. Verses about Earth before the invasion. About skies untainted by extraction clouds. About freedom. One poem in particular caught her attention. They say hope dies last. But they've never seen a dandelion. Crack concrete with nothing. But sunlight and stubborn genes. Nick Stahl found her eyes leaking moisture. An embarrassing physiological reaction her species experienced during moments of extreme emotion. She had not wept since the fall of her own world, 63 cycles ago. The next day, she found herself unable to concentrate during her inspection rounds. The poetry haunted her, stirring memories of her own planet's lost arts. When she passed the woman from whom she'd taken the book, Nick Stahl noticed something unusual. The human was looking directly at her, with neither fear nor submission in her gaze. Just as Nick Stahl reached the habitation sector, alarms blared throughout the compound. Security breach at Houston Spaceport announced the facility-wide communication. All overseers report for emergency duty. Sarah Chen had not expected the Houston mission to go sideways so quickly. Their cover as maintenance workers had held for nearly 3 hours, until a new Kreth security protocol flagged their falsified biometric signatures. We're compromised, hissed her second-in-command, a former Russian Spetsnaz operator who now went by Volk. Primary objective impossible now. Sarah assessed their situation. 12 resistance fighters trapped between the spaceport's main terminal and the landing pads, with Kreth security closing in from both directions. Their exit route was cut off, and extraction teams couldn't approach with the area on high alert. We adapt, she said simply, tapping her tactical display. New objective. Make them remember us. What followed would later be described by a Vothi observer as beautiful chaos. Sarah's team split into 3 groups, each implementing tactics that defied conventional military doctrine. Where the Kreth expected retreat, Sarah's people advanced. Where they anticipated defense, her fighters ignored incoming fire to reach strategic positions. Sarah herself led the most audacious maneuver, commandeering a massive loading mesh used for cargo transfer. The Kreth, anticipating small arms fire, had no protocol for a 60-ton machine suddenly tearing through their formation. "Command, this is Enforcer Unit 7. Transmitted a panicked Kreth officer. Humans are not responding according to resistance profiles." The response came instantly. "Eliminate all subjects. Full bioweapon release authorized." As deadly neurotoxin canisters launched from Kreth positions, Sarah executed the final phase of her improvised plan, using the mech to collapse an entire landing pad structure onto the gathered Kreth forces. The footage broadcast across Kreth communication channels showed what appeared to be a suicide mission. Humans seemingly sacrificing themselves to destroy their enemies. What the cameras didn't capture was the maintenance tunnel entrance beneath the collapsed structure, where Sarah led her team into the undocumented passages she had memorized from pre-invasion schematics. 6 hours later, they emerged 15 miles away, all 12 operatives alive. And with the mission's true objective achieved, a backdoor access node to the Kreth's interstellar communication system, small enough to fit on a memory crystal the size of a fingernail. What Sarah couldn't know was that the Houston footage had been intercepted before the Kreth could suppress it, spreading across slave populations on 17 worlds, sparking whispers of something unprecedented. Successful resistance. Nyx Tal had witnessed 14 public executions during her service to the Kreth Imperium. Each time, she had maintained the proper posture of an overseer, spine straight, four-fingered hands clasped behind her back, face impassive despite her species' natural tendency toward emotional expression. The 15th execution broke her. The children had been caught in an abandoned school building, sharing stories of Earth's history through crude drawings. Their crime: perpetuation of cultural identity in violation of Integration Protocol 5C. The oldest couldn't have been more than 12 Earth years. She watched as the Kreth commander made his examples, methodically and without emotion. 5 small bodies discarded like waste material afterward. That night, rain lashed against her quarters in the administrative sector. Nyx Tal moved with quiet precision, gathering only what she needed: the stolen poetry book, a nutrient pack, and most crucially, the data core she had been entrusted to analyze, containing personnel records of all special observers embedded within Kreth administration. The Kreth believed their subjugated overseers were thoroughly broken. They never considered that decades of oppression might forge unexpected bonds between the conquered. Lightning illuminated the skeletal remains of Chicago's skyline as Nyx Tal slipped past the perimeter sensors, using knowledge gleaned from years of installing them. She had memorized patrol patterns, blind spots in the surveillance network, and the location of the human resistance cell rumored to operate from the flooded lower levels of the city. What she hadn't anticipated was the storm's intensity, or the Kreth security drones deployed specifically because of the weather interference with standard sensors. Unauthorized movement detected. Species: Vothi. Classification: Overseer. Status: Restricted zone violation. The drone's spotlight pinned her against the collapsed facade of what had once been a financial center. Nyx Tal froze, knowing the automatic execution protocols for deserters. The shot never came. Instead, the drone exploded in a shower of sparks, fragments pattering around her like artificial hailstones. 5 humans materialized from the darkness, their salvaged Kreth adaptive camouflage deactivating. Their weapons, hybrid creations of Kreth technology and human ingenuity, remained aimed at her. "We've got a blue," said one, using the resistance slang for Vothi overseers. "Collaborator." "No," Nyx Tal said, slowly raising her hands to show the poetry book. "Refugee." The humans exchanged glances of confusion and suspicion. One stepped forward, her weathered face revealing she'd survived the initial invasion. "Why would we trust you?" Nyx Tal opened the book to a marked page. "They say hope dies last, but they've never seen a dandelion crack concrete with nothing but sunlight and stubborn genes." Recognition flashed across the woman's face. "You're the one who took Sophia's book." "I kept it safe," Nyx Tal replied. "And now I need to meet your commander. I have information critical to your survival and the survival of 17 other species. The Resistance headquarters beneath Chicago had once been a major transit hub, its multiple levels now serving as everything from living quarters to manufacturing facilities. Nix Tall noted the ingenious use of space and the surprising absence of hostility from most humans she passed, though many stared with undisguised curiosity. When she finally faced Sarah Chen in the Central Command area, Nix Tall understood why the Kreth feared this human specifically. Unlike the broken leaders of other conquered species, who carried defeat in their posture, Chen radiated controlled purpose. "You risk everything to come here," Chen said, studying the Vathi with intense focus. "Why?" In answer, Nix Tall activated the stolen data core, projecting identification profiles of 27 special observers embedded throughout Earth's administrative zones. "Because you are not alone," she said, indicating specific profiles. "These individuals appear to be Kreth administrative staff, but they are not. This one is Vathi, like me. These three are Meridians, shapeshifters who've maintained their cover for decades. These crystalline signatures belong to the Ix, who've been gathering intelligence since the first days of occupation." Sarah's expression remained neutral, but her pulse, visible to Vathi sensory perception, accelerated. "Representatives from all three species request a meeting," Nix Tall continued. "Something is happening that has never occurred in the 1,000-year history of the Imperium. 17 subjugated species are watching Earth with something they have forgotten how to feel." "And what's that?" asked Chen. "Hope," replied Nix Tall simply. "You fight differently. You adapt differently. You," she hesitated, touching the poetry book, "dream differently." Dawn broke over a world holding its breath. In underground bunkers, flooded subway tunnels, and hidden mountain facilities across Earth, Resistance fighters prepared for what many believed would be their final stand. Operation Lazarus wasn't just ambitious, it was borderline suicidal. Sarah Chen stood before the gathered coalition leaders in the Appalachian Command Center, their faces illuminated by the holographic display of global Kreth installations. 3 years ago, they came expecting another easy conquest, she said, her voice steady. Today, they learn why Earth is different. She nodded to Dr. Williams, who activated a secure communication channel. Sarah took a deep breath and recited, "Today we rise from ashes." The words, taken from the poetry book that had changed Nix Tall's life, transmitted simultaneously to every resistance cell worldwide, using a frequency modulation that Kreth sensors filtered out as background radiation. Operation Lazarus began precisely 4 minutes later. In London, miners who had spent months placing microscopic charges at structural weak points throughout the Westminster Processing Center activated them in a synchronized sequence. The resulting collapse appeared catastrophic, but followed an engineered pattern that created survivable pockets for human workers while crushing Kreth overseers. In Nairobi, resistance fighters deployed Dr. Kaczynski's sonic weapons for the first time in a major offensive. The effect was immediate and devastating. Kreth soldiers collapsed in writhing heaps, their neural systems overwhelmed while humans moved unaffected among them. But it was the Moscow operation that truly demonstrated how much humanity had learned about their oppressors. A combined force of former Russian military and civilian hackers infiltrated the Eastern European Command Center using stolen biometric signatures and exploiting the Kreth's rigid adherence to their own security protocols. They moved through the facility with such precise knowledge of its layout that it seemed impossible they hadn't built it themselves. Aboard his orbital flagship, Admiral Zoth Ven watched in disbelief as simultaneous attacks erupted across the planet. His 6 eyes shifted through spectrums of rage as reports flooded in. "Impossible," he hissed, mandibles clicking in agitation. "No species has ever mounted coordinated resistance after subjugation. Not in 1,000 conquests." "Sir," ventured his second-in-command, "the humans appear to have exploited structural weaknesses we were unaware of. They are primitive mammals." Zoth Ven's exoskeleton vibrated with fury. "Initiate orbital bombardment. Sterilize the primary rebellion centers." The weapons officer turned to his console, then froze. "Sir, the targeting systems are not responding." Across the bridge, control panels flickered, displays suddenly flooding with unknown code sequences, human numerals interspersed with what appeared to be poetry fragments. "What is happening?" demanded Zoth then. The communications officer's voice quavered. "Admiral, our ships are targeting each other." Outside the viewports, Kreth warships began firing, their weapons systems hijacked by Dr. Williams' neural virus. The flagship itself shuddered as its main batteries discharged, striking the support cruiser. Then came the most terrifying development of all. The Admiral's personal guard, the elite soldiers with neural implants connecting them directly to the fleet's command systems, suddenly straightened. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light as the implants activated simultaneously. "What manner of demons have we awakened?" Zoth then whispered, backing away from his own guards. One of them spoke, its voice oddly inflected. "We are not demons, Admiral. Just humans who learned your technology better than you did." The flagship's reactor core overloaded moments later. On the ground, Sarah led the final assault on the North American Command Center outside the ruins of Washington, D.C. Former enemies fought alongside each other. Chinese special forces providing cover fire for American Marines, Russian combat engineers clearing paths for Mexican resistance fighters. The battle culminated in the command center's inner sanctum, where the Kreth ground commander, a massive specimen standing nearly 9 feet tall, awaited with his elite guard. "You have accomplished nothing," the commander growled as Sarah's team breached the final door. "The Imperium spans 1,000 worlds. Earth is but one." "You're right about one thing," Sarah replied, readying her weapon. "Today is about more than just Earth." What followed was the most brutal combat Sarah had ever experienced. The Kreth commander's exoskeleton deflected most conventional weapons, and his strength allowed him to toss grown men aside like toys. Sarah found herself alone against him after her team dealt with his guards, her ammunition depleted, armed only with a combat knife against a creature evolved for war. A crushing blow from the commander's armored limb sent Sarah sprawling, her ribs cracking on impact. As the Kreth towered over her for the killing strike, a small figure darted between them. Maya, the teenager Sarah had saved months ago. The distraction cost Maya dearly. The commander's strike caught her full in the chest, the sickening sound of impact echoing through the chamber. But her sacrifice gave Sarah the opening she needed, allowing her to drive her knife through the vulnerable joint in the commander's exoskeleton, where neck met thorax. As Kreth forces retreated worldwide and resistance fighters secured critical installations, Dr. Williams and the alien engineers worked frantically in orbit, adapting captured vessels for human neural patterns. 6 hours after Operation Lazarus began, Sarah Chen, bandaged but unbowed, stood on the bridge of the Kreth dreadnought Inevitable Dominion, renamed by its new crew as simply Lazarus. "Navigation," she said, her voice hoarse from the battle but firm with purpose, "set course beyond Earth orbit. It's time we took the fight to them." The Houston spaceport, once a Kreth military stronghold, now humanity's first interstellar launch facility, hummed with activity under the Texas sun. 6 months of frantic preparation had transformed the captured base into something uniquely human, a blend of salvaged alien technology and Earth ingenuity. 7 warships hovered above the launch pads, their hulls bearing new markings, Earth's continents outlined in brilliant white against the dark Kreth metal. Engineers had stripped away the biomechanical components that made the vessels partially sentient under Kreth control, replacing them with systems humans could understand and trust. On the command vessel's observation deck, Admiral Sarah Chen studied tactical projections of the Alpha Centauri system. Intelligence gathered from their alien allies indicated 3 enslaved worlds and a significant Kreth military presence, their primary forward base after the retreat from Earth. The simulation still shows 62% casualty rates, Dr. Williams said, joining her at the display. His left arm now ended in an advanced prosthetic, a reminder of the battle for Moscow. We're asking people to make a jump that was never designed for human physiology." Sarah nodded grimly. Everyone volunteered, knowing the risks. "That doesn't make it easier to bear." "No," she agreed. "It doesn't." Throughout the flagship, christened Prometheus Unbound, final preparations were underway. In the medical bay, doctors administered experimental compounds designed to help human bodies withstand the neural stress of faster-than-light travel. In engineering, VAFI technicians made final adjustments to drives never meant for human control. Among the crew, former adversaries shared quiet moments before departure. A Chinese pilot showed a Russian engineer pictures of her hometown before the invasion. An Iranian tactical officer taught American Marines a pre-battle prayer from his childhood. A Meridian shapeshifter who had spent decades undercover among the Kreth demonstrated how their species communicated through color patterns rather than sound. Dr. Williams had developed translation modules that would allow their liberation message to reach all enslaved species. The Kreth deliberately keep their subjects isolated, he explained during the final briefing. Most don't know others are resisting. When the departure hour arrived, Sarah addressed the combined fleet crews. "What we attempt today has never been done. Humans were never meant to travel between stars in ships designed for alien minds. The pain will be excruciating, but remember why we endure it. Not just for Earth, but for every world suffering under Kreth dominion. Today we bring something the Imperium has spent a millennium trying to extinguish: hope." The jump itself was worse than anyone had anticipated. As Prometheus Unbound and its 6 sister ships entered FTL, human screams echoed through every corridor. The neural interface between pilots and ships, adapted but still fundamentally alien, felt like molten metal poured directly into their brains. Sarah, strapped into the command chair, bit through her lower lip rather than scream. Blood trickled down her chin as stars stretched into infinity around them. Then, abruptly, they were there, the Alpha Centauri system expanding before them on the view screens. But instead of the expected defensive perimeter, they faced a full Kreth battle group. 15 capital ships arranged in standard Imperium formation. "They were waiting for us," Williams said, his voice hoarse from screaming during the jump. Sarah wiped blood from her chin, studying the enemy formation with narrowed eyes. "No, they were preparing to return to Earth." A grim smile formed on her lips. They expected broken survivors, not a counterattack. What followed would later be called the Symphony by historians, a battle where inferior forces triumphed through tactics the Kreth military doctrine couldn't comprehend. Sarah split her fleet when conventional wisdom demanded concentration, using the smallest vessel as bait to draw Kreth dreadnoughts into a trap. When the Kreth jammed standard communications, her ships coordinated through modulated energy pulses that appeared as random radiation to enemy sensors. Most shocking to the Kreth commander was the humans' apparent disregard for their own safety. Maneuvers that accepted damage to achieve strategic positions, tactics that sacrifice short-term advantage for devastating follow-through. 4 hours into the battle, with 3 Kreth ships destroyed and 7 severely damaged, Sarah ordered communications opened on all frequencies. Her message, translated into 17 languages, broadcast to the 3 inhabited worlds below. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth. 3 years ago, the Kreth conquered our world. 6 months ago, we liberated ourselves. We come offering the knowledge and means for you to do the same. The Imperium is not invincible. They can be defeated. They can be driven back. We are living proof. Resist. We're coming." On 3 worlds that had known nothing but submission for generations, billions watched their skies as Kreth ships burned. For the first time in collective memory, the undefeatable were falling. And then, impossibly, they began to rise. The War Council chamber aboard the Lazarus had once been a Kreth ritual space. Now it served as the nerve center for the most diverse military alliance in known galactic history. Representatives from 23 liberated species gathered around a holographic display of Kreth Prime, the heart of the Imperium, 50 light-years from Earth. In 2 years, the Great Liberation had swept through 52 star systems. The combination of human tactical innovation, Vothi telepathic coordination, meridian infiltration, and Ix crystalline technology had created a force the rigid Kreth military structure couldn't adapt to fast enough. Sarah Chen, now bearing the scars of 17 battles across a dozen worlds, studied the tactical display with eyes that had seen too much death. Her once black hair had gone completely silver, though she was barely 40. "The intelligence is confirmed," said Kivel, the Vothi representative whose telepathic abilities had proven invaluable in coordinating simultaneous uprisings. "The Kreth have withdrawn from their frontier territories to concentrate defenses around their homeworld." "A logical response," observed Dr. Williams, his prosthetic arm now upgraded with Ix technology that allowed unprecedented interaction with ship systems. "But their psychology works against them. They can't conceive of defeat, so they've created a fortress with no escape routes." The discussion turned to Dr. Williams' latest creation, FTL disruptors that could prevent jumps within a star system, trapping the enemy in conventional space. Even hardened veterans like the crystalline Ix commander seemed disturbed by the implications. This weapon, the Ix's translator, rendered their vibrations into speech. It leaves no possibility of retreat. It guarantees total victory or total destruction. "Precisely," said Williams. There was no pride in his voice, only grim determination. Sarah traced the defense perimeter around Kreth Prime. "We know they've concentrated everything they have left. The question isn't our capability, but our intent. What are we fighting for? Revenge or justice?" The question hung in the air until a communications officer interrupted, his face ashen. "Admiral, you need to see this." The main display switched to footage transmitted from a reconnaissance vessel that had narrowly escaped a frontier world. What they witnessed silenced the entire council. Systematic execution of civilian populations. Entire cities reduced to ash. The Kreth, facing unprecedented defeats, had implemented what they called loyalty enforcement, genocide as a warning against rebellion. Among the meticulous documentation recovered was footage from the Vothi homeworld, a family being executed for possessing contraband communication devices. Nixtal, standing beside Sarah, made a keening sound of recognition. "My sister," she whispered. "Her children." Sarah placed a hand on the Vothi's shoulder, a human gesture of comfort that would have been unimaginable 3 years earlier. "We depart in 12 hours, she announced, her voice tight with controlled fury. "All ships, all forces, one jump, directly to Kreth Prime." The final battle began with the largest coordinated jump in known history, -317 ships materializing simultaneously around Kreth Prime, their arrival precisely calculated to appear within the defensive fleet's formation, causing immediate chaos. But instead of engaging the unified resistance as expected, many Kreth vessels immediately opened fire on other Kreth ships. "Admiral," reported the sensor officer, "we're detecting 3 distinct communication frequencies among the Kreth fleet. They're fighting each other." The view screen showed the impossible. The once mighty Imperium tearing itself apart, massive dreadnoughts exchanging planet-killer weaponry at point-blank range. The Unified Species Alliance held position, witnessing what appeared to be the Kreth Empire's self-destruction. "Civil war," Williams observed, analyzing the patterns. 3 factions. Fascinating. Sarah's tactical mind immediately recognized the opportunity. They could simply wait, let the Kreth destroy themselves, then mop up the survivors. Maximum result, minimum alliance casualties. But then Maya, her body now enhanced with Ix medical technology to repair the damage from her near-sacrifice years ago, made a discovery that changed everything. "Admiral," she said, now a senior officer despite her youth, "I've penetrated their primary data network." The Kreth maintained something called a legacy archive, biological samples and cultural records from every species they conquered. Her voice trembled. including complete genetic banks of 17 civilizations they entirely exterminated. With this, we could potentially restore extinct species. Sarah stood motionless, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Total victory was within grasp. The Kreth were destroying themselves. Earth and dozens of worlds were already free. But in that moment, she saw beyond vengeance to something greater. "Prepare precision strikes on all military installations," she ordered. "Then broadcast our terms. Immediate liberation of all worlds, surrender of all warships, unrestricted access to the Legacy Archive, and containment to their home system for 100 years. Commander Volk, the Russian who had fought beside her since the earliest resistance days, objected. "After everything they've done, the billions dead, Earth's suffering, they deserve extinction." Sarah directed his attention to a view screen showing panicked Kreth civilians fleeing the crossfire of their own military vessels. "If we exterminate them," she said quietly, "we become them. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our capacity for revenge, but our capacity for justice despite everything we've endured." The targeted strikes began moments later, surgical and precise, crippling military capabilities while sparing civilian centers. As the Alliance's terms reached the warring Kreth factions, the shooting gradually ceased. The Imperium that had stood for 1,000 years ended not with a final glorious battle, but with a surrender document transmitted from a species they had once considered barely worth enslaving. The observation deck of Harmony Station, a massive structure orbiting Earth at the precise location where the first Kreth ships had appeared a decade earlier, curved in a perfect circle, its transparent dome offering uninterrupted views of humanity's homeworld. Once devastated continents now showed signs of healing, the extraction scars gradually fading under intensive restoration efforts. Today, the deck overflowed with representatives from nearly 100 species. They had gathered for an event unprecedented in known history: the resurrection of the extinct. In the center of the chamber, a small crystalline child took her first hesitant steps. Her skin refracted light into impossible patterns, casting rainbows across the assembled dignitaries. According to recovered records, she was the first Teloran to exist in over 3 centuries. Sarah Chen, officially Admiral General of the Concord Defense Fleet, but known throughout explored space simply as the Liberator, watched from a distance. At 50, her face had settled into the weathered dignity of someone who had witnessed both the depths of atrocity and heights of redemption. "She's adjusting well to her new reality," said Dr. Williams, joining her. His prosthetic arm had been replaced with one of Ix's design, allowing him to interface directly with any technology in Concord space. "The Teloran adaptation process is remarkable. She's already absorbing language at an exponential rate." Sarah nodded, watching the child extend a tentative hand toward a human girl of similar age. When their fingers touched, both children giggled, the universal sound of youth transcending species barriers. "The Vexari fleet has changed course," Williams continued, his tone shifting to business. "Long-range sensors confirm they're retreating from the border worlds." The Vexari, massive arthropod beings from the galaxy's outer rim, had been the first potential threat the Galactic Concord had faced. Their initial probes into Concord space had triggered defensive protocols, but Sarah had insisted on diplomacy before military response. "They've requested diplomatic talks," Williams added. "Their Supreme Commander specifically asked for you by name." Of course they did, Sarah thought. Throughout explored space, her name had become synonymous with both liberation and warning. "How many inhabited worlds were in their expansion path?" she asked. 17, according to our surveys, mostly pre-spaceflight civilizations. 17. The number resonated with painful significance, matching exactly the civilizations the Kreth had exterminated before humanity's rise. "Prepare the Prometheus Unbound for departure," Sarah ordered, "and send the Vexari our acceptance of their invitation." The diplomatic vessel, sleek where Kreth ships had been angular, designed for cooperation rather than dominion, entered Vexari space 3 days later. Its name, Prometheus Unbound, gleamed on the hull in the script of 17 different languages. As they approached the massive Vexari flagship, an organic-looking structure that resembled a floating reef more than a conventional vessel, Sarah reviewed the historical records compiled for transmission. The file contained the complete history of Earth's subjugation and subsequent liberation of nearly 100 worlds. It detailed the impossible odds, the unprecedented tactics, and the final mercy shown to a defeated enemy. Most importantly, it showed the consequences of empire building in a galaxy where humanity now stood vigilant. "Transmission ready, Admiral," reported Maya, now her executive officer despite still being in her 20s. The scars from her near sacrifice during Operation Lazarus had faded, but the determination in her eyes had only strengthened. Sarah nodded. "Send it with this message. We come offering friendship between equals. But understand this truth: humanity remembers its wounds, and our revenge echoes through galaxies. Choose your path carefully." The response came faster than anticipated. The Vexari Supreme Commander requested immediate face-to-face dialogue. In the diplomatic chamber, Sarah found herself before an imposing figure, nearly 12 feet tall, with an iridescent carapace that shifted colors seemingly in response to emotional states. Currently, it displayed rippling patterns of blue and green that the xenobiologists identified as nervousness. "We have reviewed your species' history," came the translated words, emanating from a device on the commander's thorax. "In 3 standard years, you achieved what most couldn't imagine in a millennium. We choose peace." That evening, as the diplomatic teams worked through the details of a non-aggression pact that would protect 17 developing civilizations, Sarah stood alone on the observation deck of the Prometheus Unbound. Maya joined her, carrying a small package wrapped in what appeared to be handmade paper. "I've been saving this," she said. "Nixtal wanted you to have it," after she was gone. Sarah unwrapped the package to find the book of poetry that had started everything. The contraband literature that had awakened one overseer's conscience and ultimately helped forge an interspecies alliance. The final page contained an entry in Nixtal's flowing script, added before her death during the liberation of her homeworld. "We feared the Kreth for their weapons. The Kreth feared humans for their spirit. Remember this: galaxies, empires are temporary, but humanity's light is eternal." As Sarah looked out at the stars, no longer barriers but pathways, distant vessels of 100 designs moved in formation with human ships. Throughout explored space, a phrase passed between species in trade hubs and diplomatic enclaves: "All empires fall when they awaken Earth's vengeance, but all peoples rise when they earn Earth's friendship."